कश्मीरियों का कत्लेआम बंद करो हिंदू मुस्लिम.
For thousands of days now, Kashmiri Pandits have been protesting on the streets of the valley. Government employees demanding that they be transferred out as their community becomes a target of terror attacks. In the last 24 hours, we have seen a Hindu teacher from Samba in Jammu who was posted in the valley also fall to the bullets of terrorists, leading to these protesters now setting a 24-hour deadline for the government, saying transfer us out now or else. You will see scenes of mass exodus as we all saw with horror in the 90s. There are two opinions on this. There are those who believe that to transfer government employees who were brought in under a special scheme of the Prime Minister would be to embolden the terrorists. But the other view says that the muscular nationalism rhetoric and the politics that are played in the name of the Pandits has quite simply betrayed and let down the community, leaving it isolated and not even very much in the headlines, not even by those who profess to speak in their name otherwise. So the question before us today, is it time to basically accept the demand that is being made on the streets of Srinagar and other parts of the Kashmir Valley and allow the Pandits who were brought in as government employees under a special Prime Minister's scheme to leave? Or must they pay some larger price against their will because anything else would embolden the plan set by terrorists? Let's introduce our guest on the program today. Siddharth Gigu, author, Kashmiri Pandit himself, joins us on the program. Maya Mir Chandani, a veteran journalist, a strategic affairs analyst who spent a lot of time reporting on and from Jammu and Kashmir, joins us now. General Kadian, Lieutenant General Kadian, who is of course a veteran army officer, joins us on the program. And we're also joined to share his first-person ordeal by one of the government employee protesters who is demanding to be relocated. For obvious reasons, we are using a false name for him. We are protecting his identity so he is able to speak freely. General Hasnain, who is in Udhampur, is also expected to join us shortly. Let me start with you, Siddharth. You have expressed your angst and your anguish many times. But before you speak, let me play out for you what the protesters are now saying on the streets. They are saying you're going to see the scenes of the past repeat themselves if you don't relocate us soon. They're talking about mass migration. Listen in.
अब हमने अब कोर पैन वैली अपना बारामूला से विसू तक अनंतनाग मटन जितने भी हमारे ट्रांजिट कैंप से शेखपुरा से हम श्रीनगर तक हमने एक डिसीजन लिया है कि अगर 24 घंटे के अंदर सरकार ने कोई भी ठोस फैसला हमारे लिए नहीं लिया तो हम लोग 24 घंटे के अंदर वैली से पलायन करेंगे और मास माइग्रेशन दोबारा होगी.
So, of course, the difference is that at that time, terrorists pushed and forced the Pandits out. And in some ways, it's no different. It's no different now. It's because of national security issues that we're even talking in these terms again. Siddharth, your first thoughts right
now. So, Barkha, I'm just trying to go back just 2 weeks. I don't want to go back even a month. So, only 2 weeks ago, Rahul Bhatt, a young Kashmiri Pandit, is killed in his office in Budgam. And the same day, his friends and colleagues come out of the streets in Kashmir to protest and demand security. Send us back to Jammu is what they cry. They just say, send us back to Jammu. And they say it for the 100th time. Give us Jammu posting. Is it too much to ask? Here we are being warned, threatened, killed once again. And they have been screaming for months now, begging for just this simple thing. What choice do we have? A transfer to a safe zone. I think some order is brought out wherein they are just reshuffled within the Kashmir Valley, Baramulla, Anantnag and things like that. And it is made to sound as an employment and a service issue if you look at the tweets of the administration. And but what do we want? What do these people want? They just want some dignity. And what happens is that the next day, as you know, you played that last time, they are tear gassed. These hapless, desperate, crying, begging people, they are tear gassed and they are lathi charged in full public glare. Humiliation of the highest order. No action, no outrage, not even empathy from anybody. Least you can do is empathize, listen, comfort them. But the pleas once again fall on deaf ears. Then yesterday, Barkha, Rajni Bala killed in school premises in front of our own students and fellow teachers. One more killed, and the same warning we all know, same warning, like it is 1990: leave or else fill in the blanks. An interesting thing what I heard is that the lieutenant governor seems to have met a few people today or maybe yesterday and said that even the shadows cannot be trusted here. Of course, he's right. We live in constant fear. These people are living in constant fear. The LG is right. He knows it more than we do. That we are fearful even of our own shadows. And now what happens is that, by the way, still not action. And the gates of that community, that gated, whatever you want to call it, transit quarters, that cage is shut, so that these people who they've not threatened, they've said that we'll be left with no option. We are pushing us to the brink. We'll go back to Jammu. That's safe for us. Okay. So the gates are shut. This is absurd. This is not even absurd. And they can't even go out. They can't even, let alone protest. They can't even go out now. So such humiliation, Barkha. So I want just 1 minute silence for the administration and the people in power in Kashmir Valley and those who are in authority. 1 minute silence for them, because it is the death of their conscience. It is a selective death. Their conscience falls silent and dies only when a Kashmiri Pandit is targeted. But in all other cases, Barkha, they are the conscience keepers of the nation. Okay, Kashmiri Pandit has died. No tweet, no nothing, service issue. It's an issue of,
well, they actually claim to be the conscience keepers for your community as well. The amount of politics, the amount of tutu meme, ideological battles, noise that so many have conducted in your name, Siddharth.
Yeah. They have. That's betrayal. If people don't see through those lies now, I don't know what I mean. I have seen. In fact, I must say that last time we spoke was only 10 days ago, and in which I mentioned I still I mean the entire government machinery was crying in the theaters, and they were shedding tears for those characters, and the real people who were affected were outside those theaters crying. Okay, I got a lot of calls after that, Barkha, that how dare you question the powers that be. Okay, that's what the absurdity of the situation is. That, look, don't you know what all they have done? What have they done? Please tell me. Have they even met anybody? Or, I mean, what are we asking? What are these people asking? They're not asking for the moon. They're asking for security and safety to a safe zone. Just that. Is it too much to ask for?
And I just want to remind everybody that, as you mentioned, Rajni was not just shot in front of her own students. And the second such teacher from a minority group in the valley, to whom this has happened, her daughter. There's this completely harrowing image. I think we have it of her school-going daughter there in absolute shock, and her family now confirming that Rajni Bala had asked for relocation no less than 4 times. No less than 4 times. So I just want to underline this. We'll also hear from Rahul, who's one of those employees who's protesting and asking to be relocated. In a moment from now, let me just bring in reactions to what Siddharth has said. General Kadian, the counter argument that I've been hearing is that if the government were to accept this relocation, it would give the terrorists what they want. In fact, ironically, when I spoke in favor of this relocation demand, some people online said that I was an Islamist, because if we were going to do this, then the terrorists would get what they want. They would be driving religious minorities out of the valley. My argument is, how can you make people live in a place where they don't feel safe against their will, as part of a package that was in fact meant to promise the Pandits that it was safe or appropriate a time for their homecoming. General Katia.
Barkha, one or two general points need to be made to understand the situation. One, whenever a killing takes place of a Kashmiri Pandit or anybody else, it is not the entire valley population that is behind the killing. It is a handful of those terrorists, marauders, armed and abetted by Pakistan, which has been going on. Terrorism had come down, but from middle of last year, after the Afghanistan issue, the Americans left, it has perked up again. Our heart goes out to the Kashmiri Pandits. Starting from 1990, they have been hounded, they have been thrown out of their own houses. Now the question is, second general point I want to make is that killings are taking place. When, unfortunately, a Kashmiri Pandit gets killed, our heart goes out to all of them as a community. But the religion gets highlighted. Just one day after Rahul Bhatt was very gruesomely killed, there was a policeman also killed. That news came, but his religion did not get highlighted. So we as a society also need to look at this fact.
But could it be, sir, that in one case they're being targeted because of their religion, and that is why the religion gets highlighted?
No, the government's effort, the whole thing is related to removal of 370. The normalcy will take perhaps a couple of decades to come. 3 generations have grown, reaping the benefit of 370. Now, to suddenly expect a change overnight perhaps is not practical. We need to do 2-3 things. Number one, improve our intelligence system. Of course, it is good, but we need to improve further so that we can predict some of these actions by the terrorists. Number two, anybody who is caught and they are getting caught should be given the maximum punishment, including those locals who support them. Third thing, the root of the cause lies across the border.
All of this is true, sir, but immediately their demand is relocate us to Jammu. If you were in the government, would you say yes or no to that demand?
No. I mean, we did surgical strike and we did Balakot, but that memory is short-lived. Unless
true.
You plug the source.
I agree.
Unless you plug. Sorry.
I agree. But in the immediate, the administration has a demand to take. Let me bring you what's happening on the streets of the valley, because our otherwise nationalist, hyper-nationalistic television media is not focused on these images. There are men and women sitting on the streets of the valley. Let's play some of those images. And they're out on the streets. Here you can see a group of women, but in fact, we have pictures of them squatting on the street for hours on end, General Kadian. And my question to you is, Maya, let me take that question to you. Should their demand be accepted, or would it be playing into the hands of terrorists?
So I think, Barkha, this actually points us to a question that people like you and I have been asking for a long time, which is how serious is Delhi and successive governments in Delhi to the plight of the Kashmiri Pandits, and how much are they just pawns to be weaponized in a larger political game? This government has come to power. In fact, August 5th, 2019 was supported by this community of Kashmiri Pandits, by many people who believe that the government was finally taking a strong stand on the situation in Kashmir. Here you have a community which has been wanting to come back to the valley, which is being employed, given positions in in government jobs, things like that, but now are fearing for their safety. The same government that says we are going to create an atmosphere conducive for you to return to the valley is now turning a deaf ear when they're saying the atmosphere is not conducive. So I think the question really is not to any of us, but to the government. I mean, are their lives important or are they not important? And if their lives are not important, why are you pretending that they are and claiming to implement policy? Just on a separate aside, I've actually just flown into Srinagar today. I'm trying to settle in while I logged into this phone call as well, about an hour ago. And, you know, just speaking to a few people as soon as I got in, the sense is that there are now many recruitments that have taken place across different government divisions in Jammu and Kashmir, in Kashmir particularly, but there is no consolidated data set that is telling security forces how many Pandits are there in which department, how many Hindus are there in which department, what are the sensitive areas these people have been posted to, what are the kind of security provisions that need to be made to people like Rajni Bala in Kulgam, a highly sensitive area. How are they posting these people in vulnerable jobs, in vulnerable positions? I think that's really a question for the government, because to me they've become pawns all over again.
Yeah, I agree with you, because they're being pulled in two different directions. There's a kind of burden or placed on them to carry sort of the duty to the nation. Why are you demanding this? If you demand this, the terrorists will get their way. But is that their cross to bear? And I want to put that question, in fact, to the Pandit government employee who's with us. But before that, my colleague Zafar Iqbal actually spoke to the family of Rahul Bhatt's wife, who also, before he was assassinated by terrorists, kept asking for him to be relocated to Jammu. And instead of relocation, his wife was offered a PM's job, and she declined it. Listen in.
तो ये जो जॉब दी है ये तो क्लास 4
नहीं, मैंने एक्सेप्ट नहीं की। मैं नहीं करूँ।
आपने जॉब एक्सेप्ट
ना, ये कौन सी जॉब है? ये मैं किसके आगे पानी सर्व नहीं करूँ। उससे अच्छा मैं घर में या किसी बाहर जॉब कर लूँ, प्राइवेट ही किसी कंपनी में जाऊँ, किसी में कम से कम इज्जत की तो बेटी को खमाऊंगी। बेटी को क्या बोलूंगी, मैं चपरासी हूँ, मैं तेरे के लिए चपरासी की कर रही हूँ? नहीं, वो नहीं एक्सेप्ट होगी।
तो जो गवर्नमेंट ने आपको जॉब ऑफर की है वो आप एक्सेप्ट
नहीं, बिल्कुल नहीं करूंगी। मैंने वो तो सरेआम बोला, नहीं मैं नहीं करूंगी। उनको पापा ने, उन्होंने सीधा लाया, दे दिया पापा को पैकेट, उन्होंने देखा नहीं। जब शाम को पड़ा, उन्होंने बोला, जब मैंने देखा, मैंने बोला पापा मैं नहीं करने वाली हूँ ये जॉब। क्यों? मेरे हस्बैंड में को इतनी रेस्पेक्ट थी। जब मैं उसी इंसान के सामने चाय का गिलास लेके जाऊंगी, पानी का गिलास लेके जाऊंगी, मेरे पति की क्या रेस्पेक्ट रहेगी? उसने इसके लिए तो जान नहीं दी ना वहां पे रह के, तो वो एक्सेप्ट ही नहीं होगी।
Siddharth, when you saw this clip on Mojo, you were horrified. You were horrified that instead of talking about relocation, Rahul killed by terrorists, a government employee, his wife was offered the job of a PM. Siddharth, can we unmute Siddharth? Yeah.
I was horrified, Barkha, but I'm wondering why the entire nation is not horrified and ashamed. I mean, this is, I have no words. I mean, of a PN, I wish they could take this back. Somewhere we delete this clip so that future generations, Rahul's grandkids, and he's a small daughter, they don't see that this was the treatment which the so-called, I don't want to even name the government, is this really happening? I mean, this is humiliation. They're humiliating us for no fault of ours. And I'm reminded of Vajpayee ji, इंसानियत के दायरे में बात करेंगे, और वो मिलिटेंट्स और टेररिस्ट्स के पास ये लेकर गए, और यहाँ तो हम आपके अपने लोग हैं, यहाँ इंसानियत कहाँ भूल गए आप? ये तो, I mean, who in the government who thought that let us offer Rahul's wife a job of a PN? I don't think any civilized person will even think of it. Is inconceivable, Barkha, inconceivable. We will not do it in corporate offices, schools. Job of a PN.
And of course, the larger question, and let me take this to the other Rahul, जो हमारे साथ इस समय हैं. As I said, we have seen continuous protests that have fallen off the national headlines. Rahul ji, आपसे पूछना चाहूंगी, अगर आप हमारे audience को समझाना चाहे कि आप क्यों इमीडिएट रिलोकेशन चाहते हैं? तो एक तो जाहिर सी बात है, यू डोंट फील सेफ, लेकिन लोग आपको कहेंगे देखिए आप ऐसे छोड़ के जाएंगे तो फिर टेररिस्ट ही स्ट्रांग होंगे, तो आप उनको क्या कहेंगे?
सर टेररिस्ट स्ट्रांग हो जाएंगे, दैट्स फाइन, मगर ये तो यहाँ पर आप अगर देखें, ये पैकेज बनाया गया, ये पैकेज बनाया गया कि रिहेबिलिटेट कश्मीरी पंडित्स। क्या उन्होंने पहले पूरा होमवर्क किया था? क्या उन्होंने देखा अगर हम इनको करेंगे तो व्हाट कैन बी कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस? वो कुछ नहीं देखा गया। सिर्फ एक चीज उठा के आके जी आप यहाँ ज्वाइन कर लीजिए। और अगर आप देखें, हमने ये कोई आज की बात नहीं है, अगर आप देखें पिछले 12 साल से वी आर नॉट फेसिंग ओनली दिस जो बुलेट टेररिज्म, वी आर फेसिंग पेन टेररिज्म आल्सो। अगर आप देखें यहाँ पर हमारे साथ एक जो होता है ना, एक स्टेप मदर वाला बिहेवियर दिया जा रहा है हमें कुछ भी ऐसा कोई ऐसी चीज नहीं दी जा रही जिससे हमें भी लगे कि नहीं गवर्नमेंट हमारे साथ है। ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं हो रहा है हमारे साथ। हमें सिर्फ ये इतना, हाँ आपके लिए हम करेंगे ना, यहाँ पर बैठे हैं हम करेंगे, आप बैठे आप जाएंगे तो वो स्ट्रांग हो जाएंगे। अरे स्ट्रांग तो बैठेंगे तो तब जब तक हम जिंदा रहेंगे। आप अगर हमारे साथ, जैसे जनरल साहब ने भी कहा कि ये जी रिलीजन ज्यादा ये हो रहा है, बट मैं इनसे छोटा विद ड्यू रिगार्ड मैं इनसे एक पूछना चाहता हूँ। राहुल, एक एसडीएम ऑफिस बगल में एसडीएम ऑफिस है, एक तहसीलदार के ऑफिस में, उनके अंदर वहां पर 2 बंदे जाते हैं, अंदर जाते हैं, शूट करते हैं, आराम से बाहर निकल जाते हैं। तो वो सिक्योरिटी कहाँ थी? क्या उस सिक्योरिटी पे आप ट्रस्ट कर सकते हैं कि आपको दोबारा? और अगर वो शायद आप जानते नहीं, राहुल वाज इन दिल्ली, उसको वो यहाँ बुलाया गया, कॉल करके बुलाया गया, और द डे ही ज्वाइन उसी दिन उसको शूट किया गया। ये रजनी बाला जी जो कल का केस है, वो ऑफिस नहीं जा रही थी, उसको बुलाया गया, जबरदस्ती बुलाया गया, आप ज्वाइन कीजिए, और शी वाज शॉट डेड। तो यहाँ पर हम कैसे, किस बात पे हम भरोसा? जैसे वही सिद्धार्थ जी ने भी बोला कि एलजी साहब खुद कह रहे हैं कि वी कैन नॉट बिलीव ऑन शैडोज आल्सो, वी कैन नॉट ट्रस्ट शैडोज। तो अब आप बताइए हम किस पे ट्रस्ट करें?
आपसे पूछना चाहूंगी, नहीं मैं आपका गुस्सा समझ सकती हूँ, लेकिन अब आप लोग क्या सोच रहे हैं कि आगे क्या करेंगे?
देखिए, हम काम से कभी भागने वाले नहीं है, काम हम हमेशा करना चाहते हैं। दैट्स व्हाई वी आर स्टेइंग हियर। हम गवर्नमेंट को कह रहे हैं कि जब तक आपको खुद, हम ये कहेंगे जब तक आपको खुद ये ना लगे कि यहाँ पर ठीक है हालात, तब तक हमें कहीं, और हम कहीं जम्मू नहीं बोल रहे, हम कहें एनीवेयर इन इंडिया, इट्स नॉट जम्मू ओनली, कैन बी एनीवेयर इन जम्मू इंडिया। तो हमें तब तक तो एटलीस्ट, हाँ अब आप कहेंगे कि कैसे पता लगेगा कि सिक्योर हो गया? कोई भी जब अपने आप को कहते हैं ना कि हम यहाँ पर जी सब ठीक है, वो है, उनको बोलिए एक बार विदाउट सिक्योरिटी आप वॉक करके दिखाइए। यहाँ पर अगर कोई ब्यूरोक्रेट आता है तो पूरे वो नालियां तक साफ की जाती है, कहीं कोई कुछ है तो नहीं। तो क्या हम लोगों की जिंदगी नहीं है?
Maya, if I can bring you in before I come to General Qadian, this debate over do you take a decision that seems to surrender to the terrorist agenda or not? This is, of course, a complicated decision, but this is, as I said, not the cross of people, of citizens to carry. They didn't sign up for this. 6,000 Pandits brought in under the Prime Minister's special scheme as a confidence-building measure. Things were supposed to get better after the abrogation of 370. General Qadian, of course, makes the point, why talk about religion? And it's an intriguing question because, of course, we have in the recent past also seen Kashmiri Muslims fall to the bullets of terrorists. A well-known artist, a TV artist, in fact, she was among those, Amin Bhatt. And in fact, in a targeted attack on a Kashmiri Pandit's shop, his Muslim colleague, Muhammad Shafi, is the one who ended up getting killed. But that is very different from what is now a clear pattern. If you look at what's been happening in the last few months, there is a clear pattern in the targeting, Maya. So when General Qadian says, why talk about the religion, what would you say?
So, I mean, I think there's like a two-pronged answer to that. One is, I don't think we can not talk about the religion, because at the end of the day, in the history of the narratives around Kashmir, religion has been a recurring theme. So it's not possible for us to separate that when a particular religious minority has wanted to be rehabilitated in their homeland. So I think, let's just kind of call it for what it is. There is an element of religion involved. The second thing, I think, which is a more sort of concerning, problematic, or worrying factor in all this, is that the kind of people who have been killed in the last few months, they are people who, for one reason or another, are either seen as supportive of the new arrangement post 2019, or from a migrant or a minority community. These kinds of attacks are very specific. The individuals are chosen very carefully. There seems to be some element of planning. I mean, whether it was Rahul Bhatt's office or the YouTuber's residence, these people have gone in on one pretext or another, shot their targets at point blank range, and walked out. I mean, there is an element of planning that has gone into these attacks as well. And I think we'd be foolish to think that they're just random. I don't see them as random. Now, the fact is that, we keep talking about India, Pakistan, and conversations and this, that, and the other. We also know that at the end of the day, no matter what overtures, no matter what statements are coming out of Islamabad, in the new change setup, the fact is that you have open sort of exhortations from there about, quote unquote, demographic change in the valley. So are these attacks targeting demographic change? Are they targeting specific people who may be seen as pro-India or pro-change or whatever it is? There is a selection that's taking place. And I think until we figure out how that selection is taking place and how these attacks are being planned, because maybe I'm sort of being alarmist, but I see an element of planning here, which is worrying. It's extremely worrying, and I think the security apparatus needs to be taking this more seriously. They cannot be posting vulnerable Kashmiri Pandits in assignments that are going to put their lives at danger. These people's lives have some value. They cannot just be weaponized. You cannot consistently be weaponizing the Kashmiri Pandits.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, General Kadian, Rahul's wanting to come in. Rahul, boliye, please.
जैसे मैंने अभी बोला कि हमारी से हमने ज्यादा कुछ नहीं मांगा. हम एक ही बात बोल रहे हैं कि हमें तब तक आप रिलोकेट कीजिए जब तक यहाँ पर हालात ठीक ना हो जाए. अब मैं आता हूँ पीएम पैकेज पे. जैसे ये पीएम पैकेज अनाउंस किया गया, पीएम पैकेज इट वाज इन 2010, जहां सबसे पहली अपॉइंटमेंट जो हुई थी. बट उस टाइम से लेके आज तक हमारे लिए कोई यही नहीं बना, कोई पॉलिसी ही नहीं बनी कि हमें करना क्या है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अभी अगर कोई किसी के प्रमोशन का आता है तो ही इज डिनाइड प्रमोशन. क्यों? तुम पीएम पैकेज के हो, तुम्हारे साथ हम कोई पॉलिसी नहीं है अभी. तो अगर ये पीएम पैकेज बनाया गया तो कुछ सोच के बनाया गया है या फिर ऐसे हवा में डाल दिया, चलो कोई नहीं आएगा, क्या करेंगे, बात खत्म. एक तो मैम ये चीज. दूसरी बात, जैसे हम जो डेथ्स हो रही है, जो किलिंग्स हो रही है, इज नॉट कि जैसे राहुल को नाम पूछ के मारा गया. हमारे क्या कहते हैं इनको, सुपेंद्र जी को, दीपक चंद को, उनको नाम लेके मारा गया, नाम पूछ के कि आप यही हो, कंफर्म कर दिए, यू आर हिंदू, यू आर बीइंग शॉट. दूसरी बात, इट्स नॉट ओनली कि कश्मीरी पंडित्स आए हैं, बाकी जो जम्मू से आए हैं उनको, कहीं भी स्टेट से आ रहे हैं, छोटे अगर आप रेडी वाला देखे, रेडी वाले को ही इज अ हिंदू, ही इज शॉट. जब बाकी रहे अगर, हाँ, अब देखिए इनको, अब राहुल का क्या किया गया जी, ये तो रिश्वत लेता था. अरे कहां से रिश्वत. इन्होंने फिर जब देखा गया, इनको एक अवार्ड मिला था, बेस्ट एम्प्लॉय का अवार्ड मिला था. बाद में जब वो चीज लोगों ने नहीं मानी तो फिर आ गया ये जी रेवेन्यू रिकॉर्ड्स में गड़बड़ कर रहा था. तो ये रेवेन्यू रिकॉर्ड्स में कहां से गड़बड़ हो गई? इट वाज ओनली ही वाज अ हिंदू, ही वाज अ कश्मीरी पंडित, ही वाज शॉट. और कोई रीजन नहीं था इसका.
General Kadian, I need to bring you in on those 2 points that you made. One, why is the religion mentioned? Two, you didn't answer what I asked you. should their demand for relocation be accepted? And I think, as Maya and Siddharth have said, it is not the cross of the government employees to carry, who are brought back home, ironically, to set an example for others to be able to return, to have to serve in a job against their will, when this was meant to be about rehabilitating them to begin with. General Kadir.
Barkha, the government has a very difficult choice to make. And it is not that the security is failing. We come to know only of a terror attack that succeeds. Maybe 9 that have failed, they never come to limelight. No amount of security can give 100% guarantee against terror attacks. It's not only in the valley. There have been attacks in Jammu, in Samba, in Pathankot, in Bombay, even in Delhi. Red Fort was attacked. Parliament was attacked, not because there was no security, but against people who are determined to kill and are prepared to die. There is no 100% security that can be provided. Now one understands the fear and the worry of the Kashmiri Pandits. Their protest is justified. But government has a difficult choice. If the government accepts to transfer them all out as is being demanded, then it amounts to their accepting their failure in providing security to the population. And that is what Pakistan wants, to discredit the government and to cause disturbance. So these attacks, the security is doing its job. They can improve further, but there is no 100% security in a situation. Attacks are not new. They have been taking place for the last 32 years in the valley. And as I mentioned, other places also in the country. So the demand is genuine, but I don't think the government can afford to transfer all of them out en masse as they are demanding. Our heart goes out to them. They are in a very difficult situation. But so is the government. Government is not a magician. Government has to follow some norms. We have to avoid collateral damage. The people don't carry, they don't dress in uniform, they don't carry weapons openly. There is some amount of local support is always there. So unless all that dries up, the point made by the last speaker that Pandits should not be forced to stay there till the situation improves has some merit in it. But the situation to improve will take decades. It is not easy overnight. You cannot say, all right, now the valley is normal, they are fully integrated, which is the aim of the government and the country.
Yeah,
but
I'm glad you said it so directly, because a number of people have been saying this since yesterday, that how can this demand be accepted as sort of visceral and understandable as it is. And I want to get Siddharth and Maya to respond to what you've said, that it would amount to admitting failure, it would amount to conceding to Pakistan, and so on, the points made by the general. First Siddharth, then Maya. Siddharth, go ahead.
Yeah, this proves our point. This proves my point. This proves our point that there is no hope and we should not expect anything from the government. And that more importantly, Barkha, this proves the point that we have been alone for the last 32 years in this vortex, which seems to be getting bigger and bigger and more complicated. And we are still alone in this struggle. And maybe possibly we'll always be alone. So this proves our point. So I thank General for clarifying the government and expressing the helplessness of the government, which I think this is Modi is one of the maybe the 4th or 5th most powerful leader of the free world, right? And BJP is maybe the 3rd or 4th largest party. And what does it take? What does it take? 6,000 employees in a country of 1 point whatever billion. What does it take? Okay, sign one order, relocate them, or maybe give them leave without pay. I mean, imaginative solutions. I mean, if you give this to a typical project manager, no, Barkha, in any of the corporate places, they'll do a better job because they're all solutions oriented. We also have our own compulsions, but solutions oriented. Give them that kind of a thing. That is one thing. Second thing is that I would just want to, it's nothing out of Pakistan now, this killings and things like that. This is, I mean, let's draw up for a moment the persona, the sketch of the so-called person, or the persons, maybe one person who just walked with a pistol into Chadura, that place, and killed Rahul and killed Rajni. we don't even need that sketches, because we know these people have existed for the last 32 years. It's very easy to kill. Somebody decides, let's get hold of it. You don't need intelligence and names and all that stuff. Just need a gun, a weapon, maybe a pistol. So it is this banality of evil, Barkha, which has corrupted the souls of these people who come out of their houses, walk into a school or a government office, shoot a person dead, go back to their houses and carry on with their daily lives. And the next day we are told that 2 terrorists shot dead. Who knows who is shot dead and all that stuff? We know what has been happening in Kashmir for the last 32 years. But there is this banality of evil which is at play. It is so easy to kill a person and to terrorize the entire community.
Yeah, absolutely. But I want to bring in Maya now. Two very differing perspectives. You mentioned this whole sort of narrative about the demographic change. There is a clear targeting. Of course, as I mentioned, Kashmiri Muslims have often been victim to terrorism, in particular mainstream political party workers who pay a price with their lives to keep democracy afloat in the erstwhile state. But to General Qadian's point that you'd be ceding a space to Pakistan that as a state India can't afford to do if you transfer thousands of Pandits and other religious minorities out, you would say what?
I would say that statement itself is an admission of failure, for the simple reason that it proves what many of us have said as we have reported on the ground from Kashmir for much of those last 32 years, Barkha, is that the state, as in the Indian state, cares about the land, not its people. Whether they are Pandit, whether they are Muslim, whether they are Gujar, whether they are from Ladakh, it doesn't matter. This is only about a real estate problem. And if that's the case, that the state cannot be seen to be ceding this kind of space or accepting failure, then you're essentially just confirming that people's lives don't matter. So why pretend? And A, that, and B, that August 5th, 2019 was not some fast track solution. It was not a magic wand that sorted out the problem at one shot, which is what it was presented to the rest of the country as. What's changed?
General Qadian, do you want to take that? And then I'll give Rahul the last word. General Qadian, what's changed? Has anything changed?
We are living through a difficult situation. I again maintain, Barkha, unless we plug the source of terrorism. There are a large number of terrorists, 15, as far as I know the figure this year, who were foreigners. Once they were killed, they are coming across the border. Today's supply of ammunition and arms is getting easier because of the drones. So unless we tackle Pakistan in whatever method, I am sure the government has method. Pakistan, as it is failing, you only require a little push to make them tumble down. But this problem is not going to go. As I said, Kashmir is the only one place they will start attacks in Jammu, because people who are desperados, who are zombies, they can't think for themselves. They've been made fanatics. For them, there is no target is beyond reach. So that is not the solution. Security is good. As I said, the terror attacks that fail, we don't come to know. It's only one that succeeds. And even the terrorists have no religion. I mean, we highlight Hindus, that's unfortunate. 21 policemen were killed last year, 7 have been killed this year. None of them was a Hindu. So terrorists are terrorists. They don't have a religion, they don't have a community. They are just sent out to kill innocent people.
Okay, let me bring in Rahul as a last comment. Rahul, your community, your colleagues are on the streets protesting. You've set a 24-hour deadline. I'm assuming that's not cut in stone because we've not seen any move from the government to change policy. So, आप आगे क्या सोच रहे हैं? What is the plan? What are you thinking? You must be all talking amongst yourselves about the next steps.
हम यही सोच रहे हैं अभी कि मास माइग्रेशन जैसे कि बोला गया है कि हम यहाँ से मास माइग्रेशन करेंगे, क्योंकि अगर आप देखें हम लोग इतने भी गए गुजरे नहीं है कि गवर्नमेंट जॉब के बगैर नहीं रह सकते। हम यहाँ आए थे सिर्फ गवर्नमेंट जॉब के लिए नहीं आए थे, हम यहाँ आए थे क्योंकि हम यहाँ पर बसना चाहते थे, हम यहाँ पर रहना चाहते थे। लेकिन शायद मेजॉरिटी कम्युनिटी नहीं चाहती कि हम यहाँ रहें। दूसरी बात, अगर आप देखें टेंशन कितना हाई है, आपके पास इंफॉर्मेशन आ गई होगी कि कुपवारा में एक मिस्टर सुशील बान है, he died of hypertension. और ये भी दो दिन पहले की बात है. और इस तरीके का हमारा इस टाइम माइंडसेट हो गया है कि हम लोग टेररिस्ट तो बाद में मारेंगे, हाइपरटेंशन और हार्ट अटैक से ज्यादा मरेंगे. आप वर्क प्लेस पे आपको ये नहीं पता आप कैसे वहां पर काम कर सकते हैं कि जब आपके नजरें दरवाजे पे ही होंगी, पता नहीं कौन आएगा और गोली मार के जाएगा. ये जब वो सेंस ऑफ सिक्योरिटी नहीं है तो क्या आप उस माहौल में काम कर सकते हैं? सिंपल सर. लेकिन हमने सब कुछ छोड़ के हमने ये किया, ओके लेट्स ज्वाइन इट. हम भी अपनी तरफ से जो कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि अगर गवर्नमेंट चाहती है कि एक भाईचारा बना रहे, हमने भी उसकी तरफ कदम बढ़ाया. लेकिन उसका क्या हुआ? हमें क्या मिली? गोलियां. दूसरी बात,
अब आप जी बोले.
जी बोलिए मैम.
ये मैं पूछ रही थी, तो अब आप कह रहे हैं that you are considering mass resignations?
Yes. हमने ये चीज हमने पहले ही बोल दी थी. हमने इनफैक्ट हमने आगे फॉरवर्ड भी किया था, अपने मीडिया में भी देखा, और हमने वी हैव हैंडेड आउट जो रिप्रेजेंटेटिव आए थे एलजी की तरफ से, उनको हैंड ओवर भी कर दिया है स्टार्ट में ही. पर उन्होंने कहा कि नहीं, वी आर नॉट एक्सेप्टिंग इट, आप बैठिए, देखते हैं हम क्या सोल्यूशन कर सकते हैं. बट इट हैज बीन 20 days नाउ, कोई हमारी तरफ कोई कुछ भी नहीं हो रहा. और एक ये ना कि एक बोला जाए नहीं, हम आपकी तरफ से आपको कुछ दिया जाएगा, हम देखें. अब सिर्फ क्या हो रहा है? सिर्फ ट्रांसफर्स हो रही है. और ये ट्रांसफर्स कब हो रही है? जब लोग मर रहे हैं. यानी कि अगर ये डिमांड हम कितने सालों से कर रहे थे, लेकिन नहीं हुआ, वहां फार फ्लंग एरियाज में डाला गया. अब जब ये आ रहा है, हम जी आपको डाल रहे जी सिक्योरिटी जोन में. ये सिक्योरिटी जोन में कश्मीर में कहां पर है ये बता दिया जाए हमें. अगर है कहीं तो बता दे.
It is a very, very painful moment for you, Rahul, and thank you for speaking to us at this time. We'll have to leave it there. General Qadian, you make a fair point that, when we talk of solutions, we're talking of decades. We're not talking of days and months and weeks. And that point is well taken. But while the Indian state responds to Pakistani deep state and so on, what happens to citizens that are getting crushed? And by the way, the amount of media attention given to the Pandit community at other times, the political attention, and now when they're out of the streets, literally pleading for their lives, I really want to know why they are not the first headline on so many platforms that otherwise claim to be their allies. Leaving it there, Maya Meet-Shintani, General Qadian, Siddharth Gigu, and to Rahul, whose identity we've had to camouflage for his own safety. Thank you very much. And we will pick this up as this very delicate situation in the valley unfolds further. Thank you very much. Take care. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.